We begin in East Africa, where Ethiopia is facing a critical shortage in food supplies. The head of the World Food Programme in Ethiopia says the nation's emergency food reserves are nearly empty.
Abdou Dieng says that despite incoming aid, the lack of food is a direct result of the drought blanketing the Horn of Africa. Dieng says the WFP is also monitoring reports out of neighboring Eritrea that suggest there are food shortages there too. Meanwhile, the International Committee of the Red Cross says it hopes to more than double its Somalia budget so it can feed more than 1 million people hit by famine in areas controlled by the militant group Al-Shabaab. Namibia is stepping up to aid of famine victims by donating $500,000 toward relief efforts.
Drought and famine are forcing tens of thousands of Somalis to seek assistance in Mogadishu or neighboring countries. But the UN and other aid agencies say the ongoing conflict in Somalia and actions by Al-Shabaab are also to blame for the growing migration. VOA's Mariama Diallo reports.
Aid workers at the Hagadera Reception Center in Kenya say the number of refugees has increased dramatically since June. Alex Sekai is an emergency response officer.
We used to receive like 300, 400, but now it's beyond 1,200, 1,300. The number is shooting every day and we are expecting more.
The lack of food and water in many parts of Somalia is certainly the main reason so many Somalis are fleeing their homes. But Vincent Cochetel, the regional director for the United Nations Refugee Agency, says fighting and oppression are also causing people to head for the camps.
When you talk to people in Kenya or in Ethiopia, you give them 2 minutes and you ask them, why did you leave? They say because of the famine. Give them 30 minutes. They will tell you horror stories about the sort of repression they were confronted to, local control by Al-Shabaab or other groups.
Cochetel gave a number of examples, including this one.
20 IDP families from Koshkin basketball stadium in Belet, that's the Iran region. All the families were evicted from the basketball stadium after they were told to pay a rent by Al-Shabaab. They could not afford paying the rent. They were expelled from that stadium and they decided to move on.
Allan is with the World Food Programme. He says the situation is worsening and pleads for better access inside the Horn of Africa nation. But Jury cautioned against blaming any specific group.
You need creative ways to deal with local authorities and initiatives, and some of those capacity for local dialogue is not necessarily well served by naming a lot of names and screaming from the top of the podium in the press and the media. It can be counterproductive.
The international agency Oxfam says the international community is failing to keep pace with a crisis that is spiraling out of control. Samhar Araya is the group's Horn of Africa regional policy advisor.
It's a combination of all kinds of things. We've got poverty, we've got lack of access to food, we've got children who grew up in war, we've got a country without a centralized government, a functioning government that is, facing a series of problems regionally, and we have an international community that has tried to deal with Somalia, but it hasn't been adequate enough.
The United Nations has said 3.7 million Somalis are in need of emergency assistance. It estimates that number of people could rise by 25% if urgent action on all fronts is not taken. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.